This video covers filling out the identification area of a PDS4 label. In this video, we will show how PDS4 uses logical identifiers to define your product's location within the PDS4 archive and how metadata is entered to make your data easier to find using search engines. Feel free to pause or go back in the video at any time. Every PDS4 label requires an identification area class, which provides identifying information about a product so that it can be distinguished from others and referenced properly. Each of the attributes also provides metadata on the product and allows data to be found using search tools. This class appears immediately after the opening tag of your base product class, for example, Product Observational or Product Collection. Identification area begins with a few required attributes: logical identifier, version ID, title, information model version, and product class. The logical identifier attribute, called a lid, is a unique string that identifies your product and spells out what collection and bundle it belongs to. See the section on lids for details on how to formulate them, and talk to your node about ensuring your lids are unique. Validation tools will check to see if a lid is structured correctly, and if you are validating an entire collection or bundle, that there are no naming conflicts internal to the collection. The version ID attribute, called a vid, tracks different archival versions of a product. If you need to update a product that already appears in the archive, you must increment the version ID. The format is two integers separated by a period. For example, version 2.1. Increment the leading integer for major changes and the integer following the decimal for minor changes. Each node has its own guidelines on what constitutes a major or minor revision. Data providers should consult their node representative for more guidance. The combination of logical identifier and version ID make a lidvid, a string that uniquely identifies different versions of the same product in cases where you need to distinguish between them. Within a product label, different version IDs are tracked through the modification history, which appears later in identification area. The title attribute is a human-readable string to help users figure out what product they're looking at. It is not required to be unique, but it should be descriptive. Information model version is the version of the PDS schema against which your label will be validated. It can be found at the beginning of the .xsd file for your label. See the schema location highlighted at the top of this label. If you enter the wrong version number, validation tools will fail and not find any other errors. If you have any questions about version number, contact your PDS node. The product class attribute must match the opening tag of your label, such as Product Observational, Product Document, and so on. An optional class called alias list could be included here in cases where the product is known by multiple names or has been renamed. Following those attributes is the citation information class, which provides basic publication information so that a product can be cited or registered in a catalog such as the Astrophysics Data System or ADS. This class is required in collection, bundle, and document labels and optional for observational products. If the information is identical across all observational products, it's better to omit it at the basic product level. Author list is the first attribute in citation information. It is technically optional, but should be included if you intend to register your PDS product with any service that requires authorship information. Names should appear in the format surname, suffix, comma, initials, with names separated by semicolons and no "and" after the final semicolon. Here, author refers to anyone responsible for producing the data that appears in the product. For those involved preparing a product for archiving, use the editor list attribute, which follows author list but is identical in structure. The next attribute is publication year, which is the year the product was published in the PDS as opposed to any earlier initial publication. This attribute is required. Next is an optional keyword attribute, which can be repeated as many times as you wish. Keywords are search terms you can provide to help users find your data. Lastly, citation information has a required description attribute. Write an abstract level description which you would want users to see when the product is returned in a search. After citation information comes the modification history class, which is where you track changes to your product. It is optional but highly encouraged. Each time you update your product in the PDS and increment the version ID, add a modification detail class here. Modification detail has 3 required attributes: modification date, version ID, and description. Modification date is the date you modified the product. The format is a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and 2-digit day. For the sake of consistency, be sure to maintain a chronological order between modification dates if you have multiple modification detail entries. Version ID is the version number for this particular modification of the product. The latest version ID in your modification history should match the version ID given above in identification area. Be sure to increment your version ID with each successive modification detail. Finally, in the description attribute, write a description of the changes made to the product that warranted a new version. If your product is likely to have multiple versions over time, for example, a collection may be updated with additional observations, be sure to describe those changes so that users in the future will be able to determine which version of a product they need. This video covered filling out the identification area of a PDS4 label. In this video, we showed how PDS4 uses logical identifiers to define your product's location within the PDS4 archive, and how PDS4 uses metadata to make your data easier to find using search engines.